Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for helping out. My name is Ransom Nyima. I'm a fourth year radiography student and also a medical writer and also YouTube content creator. So today I have an amazing guest speaker all the way from Switzerland. Hey, guest speaker, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, yeah. Hi, my name is Arik, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Choice. And our aim is to redefine paid companionship. And well, I've been in tech for the past 16 years and previously bootstrapped or helped bootstrap an enterprise SaaS company until exit.
All right. Thank you so much for introducing yourself and your company. So we have a lot of questions, a couple of questions for you to answer for the audience. You ready?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Even looking downwards, I'm reading the questions to Eric. All right. So you guys wonder what am I looking downwards for? I've already written the questions down for him on a piece of paper so he can offer his narrative in those questions. So the first question for you, Eric, is so tell me, how is your tech company helping to improve sexual health and social well-being in Switzerland and beyond? Talk us through.
Sure, yeah. Basically, part of your sexual health is also discovering your own connection or your own path to intimacy. It's something very subjective. And society has always turned to experts whenever they needed advice or help with someone, except for intimacy. So, with intimacy, there's stigma preventing society from accessing that expertise because whenever we talk around or about paid intimacy, we think there's a negative connotation with it. So we are trying to change that by building a safe platform where providers can offer paid companionship but also paid intimacy in markets where that's legally allowed. Um, and around the social well-being, there's a big epidemic around loneliness, not just in Switzerland, but actually globally. And what we're doing is we are giving access to society to consume companionship also as a service. And that can, we don't want to say this is solving loneliness. It's just adding another alternative of how you can intervene loneliness. An alternative to, let's say, a dating app, which is different because it's a peer-to-peer connection or meeting. And what we are offering through paid companionship is a service provider customer relationship.
Oh, that was amazing, Eric. I love the fact that you mentioned about loneliness. Your company, offering a community for people that face loneliness, which is an amazing stuff you do. So before we move further to the next question,
Mhm.
talk us through what really inspired you to, you know, create this amazing tech company, and with a specialization in terms of the sexual health and this social well-being in general. So talk us through what was your behind the scenes or your initiatives that made you to find this or create this amazing company. Talk us through.
So after we basically exited the previous company that we built, which was an enterprise SaaS company. So it was a sales app helping large corporations have a more effective or efficient sales process. So after that, I took some time off and said, I want to build another tech company, but I want my tech company to also have an impact on society. So I was looking or researching in societal challenges that we are facing, and loneliness was one of the big challenges that I came across. And when researching loneliness, it's very difficult to not find research by John Cacioppo, who's actually the inventor who coined the term social neurosciences from University of Chicago. And in his research, he describes a state of, and by the way, when I say lonely people or loneliness, I talk about it in a broader sense. So it's not the chronic state of loneliness necessarily. It can be a very circumstantial state, such as after a breakup or after a partner passing away. So, there we need to think about loneliness in the broader sense here. And so what he describes is in his research is a state of hypervigilance. And I think that's important if we think about it. So he describes a state of hypervigilance by people facing loneliness. So whenever you are lonely, you start interpreting at different levels of intensity, but you start interpreting social connections as threats. And if you think about it, that's a vicious cycle that starts. So the more you interpret social connections as threats, the more you start isolating yourself. The more you start isolating yourself, the more you interpret social connection as threats. And one of the options that he presents in his research, and that brought me really to this concept of working on paid companionship, or making it less friction, making it have less friction, and also making it a safer space or safer, is that one of the intervention mechanisms could be somebody else intervening or helping you intervene, but in a less threatening form. So consuming companionship as a service, as an inclusive service, could be an option to intervene this vicious cycle of hypervigilance, because a paid service is less threatening than a peer-to-peer connection. So think about, I don't know, think about a frustrated user on a dating app. Dating apps are right now losing a lot of, especially young female users, because they're being harassed on dating apps, mostly by men. I mean, let's face it. And there was a Wall Street Journal coverage about this. So imagine you have a dating app user, and they just want a date, but on their own terms. So they want to dictate the rules of what is being done during that date and what is not being done. And that changes the dynamic completely. So we think there's great opportunity there.
Wow, that's amazing, Eric. I love the behind the scenes and what's keeping going and creating this amazing foundation, which is an amazing stuff. So thank you so much for talking us through how your tech company, helping to improve sexual health and social well-being in Switzerland and beyond as well. And also talking us through about your behind the scenes and how what really impacted you to finding this amazing tech company. So the next question for you is, what challenges have you encountered while developing technology solutions for sex and sexuality in general? Talk us through.
So I think one of the most surprising things to me, coming from an enterprise SaaS background, was so moving into an area that is stigmatized, because whenever we talk about paid companionship, people think about paid intimacy, and paid intimacy are also known as, or part of it being sex work. So we look at the market as paid companionship being the broadest definition of that, then paid intimacy being part of paid companionship, and sex work being part of paid intimacy. And So if we look at that, it was clear that sex work had stigma, but what was surprising to me was that us as a founding team moving into this market also face a certain kind of stigma or prejudice. So that was surprising for me. The criticism or um, the skepticism that we are faced with or confronted with from the community. So I think that is that is still one of the main challenges.
Do you think, the first question I asked you was about, you know, how your company, helps in improving sexual health and social well-being in Switzerland and beyond.
Mhm.
The way Switzerland, your country, operates is really different from other countries. So, do you think that cultures or belief system can affect a tech company in the nearest future? Do you think?
I, I I don't think the problem is cultural. So we have faced the same or similar level of skepticism in Switzerland as elsewhere. If anything, I would say that people are maybe more open to this kind of innovation outside of Switzerland. So, you know, I wouldn't say that the cultural difference of people living in Switzerland versus other countries has made it more difficult or easier to build this venture or to start this venture. I think
Okay.
it's really credibility and prejudice that um, that are the main challenges. So a lot of bad actors have entered this market or have operated in this market, which is part of the reason there is the stigma around this market. And we are working to destigmatize, but for that we are first entering just as a new market participant. So the default assumption is that our intentions are not good.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. I really love that. So, thank you so much for talking to Steer about, the challenges you've encountered developing this amazing technologies, solutions that, for sex and sexuality in general. So, which is amazing stuff you're doing. So, the next question for you goes this way. So, can you share insights or information on how technology can play a role in gender discrimination? Or, wait, hold on. Before I ask you this question, do you, how do you quench that word, sex, in terms of the social media? Because we've had countless of stories where people set up, pages or accounts on social media that, to talk about sexual stuffs and, related content. Sometimes they get banned or they
Mhm.
get restricted sometimes. So in your company, about your company, how do you try to quench that restrictions in terms of using your the social media platforms?
So we on social media we exclusively talk about paid companionship and technology. We hardly ever mention anything intimacy related, and if we do, we mention intimacy. We don't mention we don't mention sex or sex work. There's another reason for that. It's actually so what I described before, like the way we looked at vocabulary describing the market. We also think we also think based on the research we've done, or lots of providers and customers in the market, we believe paid intimacy and paid companionship are the better, or let's say broad enough terms to correctly describe the market we are in or we are operating in. Because actually, when you look at the term sex work as opposed to paid intimacy, it often is perceived as we don't want to name the actual work. But that's not why we're not saying sex work. We say paid intimacy because based on our research and based on what we're hearing from paid intimacy or from actual sex workers, the work they describe is not always sexual. So it oftentimes can involve things or services that are more related to companionship or more related to intimacy. So it can be about proximity or closeness, which is still intimate, but it's not sexual. And so by using the word sex work, you automatically exclude that. You automatically imply that it is sexual work, which oftentimes is the case too. I'm not saying that's not happening, but for us to correctly describe the market and also to navigate certain, well, legal requirements. So in a lot of countries, sex work is illegal. So you cannot call it sex work, right?
Yeah.
And intimacy is legal. So a certain level of intimacy or paid intimacy is legal everywhere. You can always pay someone to spend time with you, for example, holding hands. And that's still intimate, but it's not sexual intimacy.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. So that brings me back to the next question I have for you. So, can you share some insights, or information on how technology can play a role in gender discrimination and promoting safe practices to talk us through?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think, so I think the easiest example is when you hear the word sex work or paid intimacy, most of the people have a picture in their head of a male customer and a female provider. That's the stereotype. And it's actually statistically, so the little statistics there are, it's proven around 95% of all the services or platforms that are out there are built for cisgender male customers and female providers, basically. And we have, when building this platform or this company, we have asked ourselves, why is it that way? Why? So if so many young female users are frustrated of dating apps, why isn't there a system or a platform where they can be the customers? And I think now, after 1.5 years of research, the answer is quite simple. When you talk to potential female customers for paid companionship or paid intimacy, and you ask them about their number one priority for a platform, it's immediately safety. For male customers, it's verification, like provider verification. They're worried that the images are not real. They are worried that the phone number is not correct. They're worried that, like other things. But for female or potential female customers, it's number one is always safety. And building a safe platform, technologically speaking, is way more difficult than building a platform where safety is not, for face-to-face meetings, is not important or is not a priority. And so if you want to build an inclusive platform that doesn't discriminate against genders, you have to build a safe platform first. Because right now, all the platforms, and I say all the platforms because I don't know a safe one. So all the platforms, they automatically discriminate against female customers because they're not safe, or they haven't built in or considered safety mechanisms, unlike choice. So that's the first thing that we prioritized, was safety. Because if we don't focus on safety, we cannot build an inclusive system.
I love that. it's amazing to hear that your company has the 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 customer's interest at heart. Because when you talk about safety nets, which is number one customers' priority because they want to be safe in every platform they're in. So it's amazing that your company is working towards that, which is an amazing stuff. And also thank you so much for sharing, some information about how, technology can play a role in terms of, gender discriminations and promoting safe practices. Thank you so much for talking us through. So the next question for you is, how will your platform talk us through? How will your platform ensure the privacy and security for users? Seeking healthy sexuality and relationship information and services. Talk us through.
Yeah, so those are big topics, and I guess at the also at top of mind of everyone using a platform like that. So I guess starting with privacy, first of all, when establishing the team or the founding team for this company, uh, I'm my background is business, right? So I had to look for uh, a chief technology officer or somebody developing the product. And when looking for that person, again, the number one priority was safety or security, but security from a data security standpoint. And so our CTO has cybersecurity background. He worked for one of the most renowned cybersecurity companies in Switzerland as well that did government and banking projects. So when we look about around or look at data security or privacy, first we look at the infrastructure. So we build our system as protected and as safe as possible from the outside world. And then the second step is we looked at privacy from a user perspective. So for those who don't know how a lot of the paid companionship or intimacy services are brokered nowadays, it is online directories. So you can think of this as an online phone book. And it's still like that. So for example, in Switzerland, paid intimacy or sex work is legal since 1942. And it still works like that. So providers create an ad on a website, and then there's photos and a text describing that ad and their phone number. And then customers would look up the phone number and then text providers. And from there on, everything is a bilateral agreement. So you need to bilaterally check what are the services, come to an agreement on price, on location, etc. There's no safety mechanisms and hardly any verification on either side. And so if you think about that from a privacy standpoint, providers are super exposed because they even have to put the phone number, they have to put images, etc. And the customer doesn't have to is not exposed at all except for their phone number. So we call this a privacy imbalance in that dynamic provider or in that relationship provider customer. And what we're trying to do with choice is equalize that privacy imbalance by asking everyone the same level of verification. So for example, in choice, everybody has to go through a government issued ID and selfie verification. It doesn't matter if you're a customer or a provider. We never reveal information to each other or to the parties, but everyone has to go through one. And I'm still surprised how there are platforms that don't have that, because the only way you can actually be 100% sure that someone is not a minor is through a valid government issued ID and a selfie. that is taken at that moment and checked against the government issued ID. And everything has to be, authentic as well. So a lot of platforms that we're seeing out there in this market say, yeah, we check ID, but then nobody verifies the authenticity. So that is a big problem in the industry, age verification, and I don't understand how countries, still allow this to happen, because if we have to do anything, we have to protect minors first, and then we can talk about, our own safety and security. So I think those two are very important from a privacy and security so from a privacy perspective. So we are protecting at the same time we are asking everyone to verify, but they verify towards the platform, not towards each other. And we make sure that everyone on the platform is verified, so they don't have to exchange personal information anymore, because they're already verified through the platform. So on our platform, they have to actually share less information than on the current directories, because they don't even have to exchange phone numbers anymore, because there's an in-app chat, for example, which also then brings us to the next topic. And it was a big question, because that's really at the core of the company, which is security. So there's the easiest example to give that is currently lacking in the industry is in the industry, and I think about the industry as the broader sense, including dating apps. Technology companies have failed to provide an effective mechanism to block known bad actors. So think about this. Let's say I'm a bad actor on a dating app. So I harass other people, I use, harassing language, and I send unwanted images to other users on this dating app, which are the two top reasons young female customers or users are leaving dating apps, basically. So there's absolutely zero consequence. Somebody can block my account from a dating app, but I could just use another phone number or use another email address, and I'm back in the dating app. So I don't lose access to that particular platform because of bad acting. And we are changing that, because everybody is ID verified. When everybody's ID verified on choice, plus at every meeting there is a check-in process where the two verified and identified people confirm they're at the same location, scanning a QR code that refreshes every 5 seconds. And at the end of the meeting, we ask both parties, were the behavioral guidelines respected, and would you want to repeat this experience? And if somebody violates the behavioral guidelines, there's an investigation, and then we can effectively block that person from the community or from the platform for good. So if they're blocked with us, they're blocked with their ID and their selfie.
Mm,
And I think that's something very, very important when talking around security, and I haven't seen it anywhere.
amazing, amazing, amazing. Wow, wow. This is amazing stuff. Focusing on the security of the users, you know, seeking for healthy relationships and healthy sexuality or intimacy with, other people, which is an amazing thing to do, because everybody needs some kind of like security in any platform they are in, if it can be toys or any other platforms. Once there is security, there is trust in everything you do. So, which is an amazing thing that your company
I,
has such
I,
values, right?
I think the other area that is oftentimes forgotten when talking around or about sex work or paid intimacy, is sexual health from an STI perspective. There are countries that have mandatory health checks that are provided free of cost, but there are many countries where there's no regulation or rule around um, STI tests, and they're also not provided for free, or not always for free, such as in Switzerland, which was surprising to me. I thought, such a regulated country would have that as well. So what we are doing is, it's not live yet, but we're working on a cooperation with remote testing kit providers for STI tests for both customers and providers, so that they can add, if they want to, optionally, if they want to, they can add this kind of information to their profile, or at the very least, through our foundation, they can get free tests done. So part of our company culture is to assume social responsibility as well. So 5% of our equity, 5% of our profits, and 5% of our employees' time, which is not a lot yet because we're a small company, but hopefully it will one day, are going into a foundation that gives back to the provider community. And part of that initiative in the long term is going to be that we can finance, for example, health checks or health tests.
That would be amazing. That would be, it's a process, right? You have to start with small, and then you keep going. One day you go hit the climax, definitely. So the health checkups are really very important. I love that aspect. Very, very important. So the next question for you, Eric, is how do you think technology has helped close the gap in sexual health research, especially in areas that are most overlooked or most criticized? In a nutshell, could you talk us through?
I think first and foremost, technology has provided more data. So I think platforms like ours, and that's a hope for the future, can provide more data to facilitate more research. Whenever I look at research around sex work or paid companionship or intimacy, it's it's oftentimes very, very um, shaky data. Like if you really dig down, so of course the results are always presented nicely, but then you look at how the research was actually conducted and the databases that was actually used. And even if you look at like EU-based data of countries where you would think statistics are done thoroughly, they are often like this because they also depend on, for example, checks that are being done, or they depend on the political sentiment in that country, or like legislative changes around sex work or paid intimacy. So my hope is, so first of all, I don't think that technology has closed that gap already, but I think technology can build a better databases or data fundaments to actually perform the research that is very much necessary.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Um, so Eric, you've been an amazing, amazing guest speaker thus far, and I believe that the audience will really know the in depth about more about your company and what it offers to the table. And so, what are your last words for the audience based on your work and your company in general?
So I think what we are working towards is redefining paid companionship and paid intimacy. So we hope to build a platform that provides access to anyone, irrespective of their gender or sexual orientation, to have access to intimacy and companionship services in a safe environment, and also for providers to be in a safe environment while conducting their work, such as in lots of other industries already.
Wow, amazing. So, if you're interested in checking out the amazing company based in Switzerland, the links, all the necessary details will be on the YouTube description below. So if you love this content, do to like, share, and subscribe to your, and share also to your network, and hopefully someone in your network will really value this video. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.